lesson from chapter 2, dividing real numbers. The good news is this is very similar to what we did yesterday. So let me just remind you that when we have fractions, with division, this is where we're going to use the reciprocal idea. So remember that the first number, whatever it is, does not change. We change division to multiplication, and we take the second fraction and we flip it. Whoops, oh, I didn't flip it. And we flip it, sorry for the mess, upside down. That's a 3. Now, I accidentally wrote the wrong number because I was looking at it and I was thinking about the negative. I kept the negative in the numerator. You could have kept it with the 10. It should not make a difference. Then we multiply just like we were doing yesterday. A negative times a negative makes a positive. 9 times 3, 27 over 10 stays 10. Now, remember that any improper fraction, you want to turn it into a mixed number. This one would be 2 7/10. If you're having trouble remembering how to do that, let me know and I will come over and explain it again. But that hopefully is something everybody's good at by now. Now remember that division, first I showed it with the division symbol side by side here, but it can also be shown using the fraction bar. So something like this. Now in this case I've got a whole number in the numerator and a fraction in the denominator. You could actually end up with both of these being fractions. The idea here is that the fraction bar is a division symbol. So we could rewrite this as -3 divided by 1/3. Then we just follow the same steps. We keep the first fraction the same. We change division to multiplication. We flip the second fraction upside down to its reciprocal. If there's anything to simplify, we could try. There's nothing here. I get -9 because a negative times a positive makes a negative over 1. And -9 over 1 is just -9. So starting out here with just numbers, hopefully this is a simple review for most of you. Any questions so far? Okay, now, how are we going to make it more algebraic? By putting in some variables. Now this is division with that fraction bar. So first let me show you one thing. We could rewrite this, just like I did with this green example here with the fraction within the fraction. We could rewrite this, and for this part, you may not want to write this down. Just watch. This is 45x divided by -9. So if we followed this pattern that I did here, writing it side by side, then multiplying by the reciprocal, watch what we'd get. -9 would be over 1, so when I flip it, and if I multiply across the top and the bottom, look what happens. We're back where I started. So here's why I said you don't need to write this part down. For some of these, now this one is different than this one. This one has a fraction within a fraction, right? Its denominator is a fraction. So this one you're going to want to try to do this way. But if it just looks like a regular fraction but happens to have variables in it, you probably don't want to go this route. As you can see, it didn't get us anywhere. So here's all you need to do. If it's a regular looking fraction, one numerator, one denominator, but it just happens to have variables in it, all we're going to do is simplify the numbers like we would a regular fraction. For example, and we're not going to even worry about the negative yet, 45 and 9 both share a factor of, Jim? Say it again? 9, right? 9 divided by 9 leaves 1. 45 divided by 9 leaves 5. Now let's just see what we have left. 5x in my numerator. Negative, don't forget the negative, or if you just put the 1, don't forget, we always need to think about the sign. This is a positive divided by a negative, which means my answer will be negative. Negative 5x over 1, we can just call it negative 5x. I'll do another one like that. The idea here is that it's not always helpful to write it side by side and multiply by the reciprocal. If it's just a regular looking fraction that happens to have variables, you can simplify the number parts the same way you would a regular fraction. So for example, one more, 48a squared over negative 8. A positive divided by a negative makes a negative. 48 and 8 both can be divided by, CJ? 8. Divide by 8. Divide by 8. I get 6a squared over 1, which is just 6a squared, and because it was a positive divided by a negative, I get a negative. So, I'm hoping this is pretty simple, but guys, pay attention. This idea of being able to simplify a fraction like this, even if there's variables, it's very important to the rest of what we're doing this year. So I need you to go slowly, check your work, don't try to go too fast, and that's it for today. Should be not too difficult, hopefully.